All right, welcome to Geometry 1.3 on midpoints. Our first objective is finding a midpoint of a segment on a number line. And we'll look at more of a definition of a midpoint, but a midpoint will be equal distance is equal distance. In geometry we say equidistant from each endpoint. We'll look at that in more detail in Objective 3. But right now what that means is if we have endpoints A and B in our illustration here, our midpoint is going to be exactly halfway between them. That's what a midpoint is. It's in the middle. It's going to break the whole segment up into two congruent subparts. So this is like our betweenness theorem, but it's a special type that instead of just the first part plus the second part equals the whole, the first part equals the second part. Okay, the two parts are equal. But the coordinate of that midpoint is going to be the average of the 2 points. Okay, and if you remember, an average means we add however many values we have, and then we subtract by the number of values. In this case, it's the average between 2 points, so we add the 2 points and divide by 2. That's going to look like this, and this is what you'll see in most textbooks, x sub 1 plus x sub 2 divided by 2 for the two coordinates x sub 1 and x sub 2. For your general formula that you give me, I would want you to give me either this form, which is that your midpoint is your A point plus your B point divided by 2, or a better form that I unfortunately came up with after printing these notes would be if we say the x-coordinate of our midpoint, x sub MP, or x sub M is fine also, is equal to the x-coordinate of my A point plus the x-coordinate of my B point divided by 2. And I like this form a little bit better because it really kind of combines this version and this version in a way that makes it clear what we're adding. Sometimes it can be a little bit confusing. A plus B, well, I wasn't told A equals anything. So this makes it clear that it's x-coordinate from our A point plus the x-coordinate from our B point. We could do the same thing on a vertical number line. We don't do this often, but for instance, we could say the y-coordinate of a midpoint is equal to the y-coordinate from my first endpoint plus the y-coordinate from my second endpoint divided by 2. And we'll actually see in our second objective, we're going to combine these together. All right, we're going to look at our first example from page 26 in the textbook. Jacinta is hanging a picture 15 inches from the left side of the wall. How far from the edge of the wall should she mark the location for the nail the picture will hang on? So we want a nail somewhere here. If the right edge is 37.5 inches from the wall's left side. So we have, I like to annotate my diagram whenever possible. The far right edge is 37.5, and they tell me the left edge is 15 inches from the wall. And I want to find the point the nail will go in the middle of the picture. It's going to be my M point. Okay, so I'm just dealing with one set of coordinates, one axis, in this case my x-axis. My relationship in words, because I'm dealing with just a straight line, 3 collinear points, this is midpoint of a segment, or midpoint on a number line. Okay, so you could say midpoint of a segment or midpoint of a number line. Either one's fine. Okay, and the equation for a midpoint, and I'm going to use my new and improved version, but if you want to use the X version, you can, is that the x-coordinate of my midpoint will be equal to the sum of the x-coordinates of my A and B points divided by 2. Then I need to identify and label my known variables. I know the x-coordinate for A. It's given to be 15 inches from the left side of the wall. So x sub A equals 15. And I know that my other endpoint, the x-coordinate of point B is 37.5. So x sub B equals 37.5. And in both cases, I'm told these are inches, so I want to make sure I track my units here. I do have units in this problem. All right, and then I'm going to substitute the things I know into my equation. I don't know x sub m, my midpoint. That's what I'm trying to find. X sub A is 15 inches plus x sub B is 37.5 inches. I'm going to divide both of these by 2. In this case, I already have my unknown solved for, and all I have left is to simplify. But we'll see in a later objective 4, sometimes we know the midpoint and one endpoint, and we're trying to find the other endpoint. And so we need to solve for that. In this case, there's just simplification to happen. So my x sub m equals my 15 plus 37.5 is going to be 52.5 divided by 2.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. 26.25 inches, remembering my units. Right? Now, a midpoint value to check reasonableness. A midpoint value should be in the middle of my two endpoints. So that 26.25, I want to go back and look at my image. Does it make sense for this value to be 26.25?
Yes.
Yeah, that's in between these two values. That's a reasonableness check.
So should we just put yes for the check for reasonableness?
Yes. I'm going to put that as a reminder in written tests, but it's not something that I have a way to check how you checked the reasonableness. All right, and those are our notes for midpoint on a number line.